This is coal. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared.
The Treasurer knows the rule on props.
By 1990, no Australian child will be living in poverty.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
I want to do this long.
I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians.
But we will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
People are entitled to their sexual proclivities.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not.
The Australian public does not want to see this place descend into a political coliseum.
You sit down, Buffett.
Welcome to Left Down Under. So, welcome to our first episode. We are going to be talking about Australian politics and the world beyond. Do you want to add anything? This is a fake introduction. I'm sorry, everybody, to reveal this to you. We've actually been recording for well over an hour. And now we're recording our introduction. Sorry, it's the magic of editing on the internet. So, have you been enjoying the podcast so far, Jock?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I hope to be doing. Just chatting about world events and the news and things that are going on around us and internationally.
Awesome. Yes, it's been a busy week, even though like we're gearing up for like Christmas, everybody's sort of going to be winding down, but I found, unfortunately, that's when a lot of stuff happens in Israel. They usually take advantage of when the Western world is distracted, they'll often do some of their worst things, unfortunately. But yeah,
We banned. We don't have that problem in Bundaberg because we banned saying Christmas.
Oh no, are you one of the cities that did it? How dare you?
Yeah, we banned saying Christmas in Bundaberg. You can only say Happy Holidays, so it's
Happy
not a problem.
holidays.
Your sign on the back behind you, that's contraband where I'm from.
Oh no. I'm gonna be like, I can't ever go back to Bundaberg. Oh, it's so silly. I was researching like last year. Somebody had said they changed the words to Silent Night so that it wasn't so religious, and it was like one place, and it was like it wasn't a Christian place. It was like they changed it because it was secular and la da da da. It's like, and they'll report that on Fox News like it happened all over the city and over the states, and everybody believes it because they're gullible.
Yep. And Albo wants Meta to pay millions of dollars to that same news company because Australians need quality journalism.
Look, I think that Meta needs to spend their money in a better way because they did also contribute to Donald Trump's inauguration. Come on now. Come on. There's no one else really in Australia that does anti-MLM. So all of my like colleagues and fellow people are all pretty much American. There was one MLM boss babe who was using the Holocaust as a way to motivate her team, and it just made me so angry that I made a video about it. And I found that I was like, hey, I kind of like this. So then I started like reacting to anti-MLM stuff, and like got helped out by the other creators, by them sort of like recommending my videos, and yeah, so that's where I've sort of found a home, and
So who are
no
our
real
MLM companies in Australia?
The big one that I cover is Enagic. They sell water filters and
That's
it
random.
yeah. It is, that's the thing. In an MLM, the products don't really matter because it's about building a team. So they have these gigantic teams and they're these people at the top of the pyramid scheme, and they're the ones who are making millions off the people that they sell the water filters to. And then you join the team and then but it's real culty, like they are, it's like they're they're fake hippies. Except one of the ladies that I've been following,
They're
she just came out
fippies.
as they're fake. Yeah, they're hippies. Yeah.
Fippies.
But she came out as a Trump supporter and she's meant to be this big feminist. And I'm like, fuck you. You're not a feminist. You support an adjudicated rapist. Fuck you. Like
Grab them
he's
by the
got,
filters.
yeah, yeah. And like they people at the top of an MLM think that they're really like the smartest people in the room because they're
Well, it's
so rich.
exploitation, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It,
It's
it's
manipulation.
like capitalism for crappy like worse products, I guess. Like there's a lot of crappy products in general, but it's like MLM is like more formalized capitalism. But I mean, capitalism is pretty formalized with employers and employees.
It's I always say that like MLMs are it is the picture of late stage capitalism. Like it is perfect. There's the victims, there's like there's a mental
Exploited.
yeah, like there's and the American teams use religion, so they use a lot of
Yeah.
religious manipulation, and that's one thing I found having like more American creator friends is that I didn't realize how religious that country actually is. Like it is insane. It is that the tentacles are everywhere,
Oh
and
yeah.
because I said, like we had Scott Morrison, who was kind of like an undercover Christian until he was
Yeah.
elected. We didn't really even
No.
know that he was that religious. And
No. And he
um
would have used all those connections from that cult to have boosted him to get in. But then thankfully, like when he got voted out, I was laughing and like, this is not America. Like Australians don't want happy clappies in running their country. And then he ran back
absolutely
to his
not.
cult and was crying on national. I don't know if it was national or not, but it was public. He was crying in public because the problem with those types of people is they believe that, and they're told by their cult leaders that God wants them to do this. So it's like Scott Morrison being elected out for him. It's like, but God said that I should be prime minister. Like, what's happening? And it's like a full breakdown.
Mm-hmm. Reminds me of Mike Johnson. Oh, he's a little dweeb. That Mike Johnson from America, the Speaker of the House, who thinks he's Moses. I was completely obsessed with the American election because it's going to fuck up a lot of things. But
Well, yeah,
I
Trump
missed the Queen.
used the happy clappies for his own
Abs-
personal agenda as well.
Absolutely. And I kind of missed the Queensland election because I was like, oh, I was so into that just with what I was consuming on YouTube because it's American politics, that I was like, oh, we've got a Queensland election. Oh fuck. And completely missed it basically. And then I was like, oh shit, I slept walk into this. So I really need to get my shit together for the federal election and looking at the trend of America, and we follow America usually. Right wing media
Oh, I
is
wouldn't say Australia follows America. Like I like definitely influenced, but I think like our most far right, like the Liberals, the most far right wing party in any place of governance. They're like the Democrats on a good day.
yeah,
So like
I that
our
I
far
don't.
right are like the American far left.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're like nowhere
I
near to
That's where
following America.
no. I'm aware. I'm like thinking that thankfully they're not as insane as their far right. Um, but then I think I was getting nervous because Gina Reinhardt was celebrating it
Yeah.
at Mar-a-Lago, and
But look what happened to Qatar. No, it wasn't Qatar, sorry. Um, I've forgotten his name. He did the Freedom, Freedom, Freedom Party.
was it Mark Latham, was it?
No, he just got kicked out of One Nation.
Ah,
For
oh,
being
shame.
homophobic, which is it's just
Right.
so ironic on so many levels. That One Nation full of homophobes kicks out Mark Latham
I
for being homophobic.
know. I know. Oh my God. Actually, I think I heard that Rupert Murdoch lost a court case so that
Yes.
doesn't have uh he does have to share out the business. I think he just wanted to give it to one person.
So yeah, no. So it's a foundation. So it's a foundation for tax reasons, so that they don't have to like they get around paying extra taxes and stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's not owned by Murdoch. And I think part of the reason you do that is for inheritance tax. So when Murdoch dies, it's not them inheriting his property. Everything that Murdoch owns, in terms of those companies, is owned by the foundation, and then all his children are recipients of the money from that foundation. It's basically just some weird scam for super rich people to be able to avoid paying extra taxes. Every country has it. I don't know. I don't really understand why they exist other than for some type of a scam for rich to not pay the same taxes that poorer people pay. But anyway, yeah, the court case was because when Rupert Murdoch dies, there are four. I think there are four siblings, and three of them will have the over. Three of them will be able to vote out. I think it's Lachlan Murdoch. I'm not sure the son,
Yeah, I think
and
it's Lachlan.
three of them will be able to vote him out, so he won't be running stuff anymore. And so the three siblings will have a veto over his one vote because they get one vote each. So Murdoch was trying to change the setup of the foundation so that Lachlan would stay running it after he died. But the problem with the foundation, and that's one of the drawbacks of putting everything into foundation, is that the foundation works for the benefit of everybody that is listed as the benefactors of that foundation, which is all four of the siblings. So the court said, no, you can't change this because you're disadvantaging three of the four people in this foundation. And that's the point of the foundation, is to help everybody who's a benefactor. So
Hmm.
you're going against the whole point of a foundation to begin with. Like Rupert should have just told the judge, like, hey, I only did this as a tax fraud. Like I wasn't actually serious about like it being beneficiary to all the members. So yeah, he lost that case. It was Clive Palmer, by the way. Clive Palmer's
Clive
party.
Palmer, duh.
It eases my fear about like Gina Reinhardt influencing so much stuff. So it was the Palmer United Party. United
That's
Party.
it. Yep.
He spent the most money on an Australian election that had ever been spent before, and he didn't get a single person in. So money only takes you so far.
I think so. And like my dad, I was afraid that my dad was gonna like head down the conspiracy pipeline because he watches a lot of YouTube as well. But he thankfully hasn't. He hates Trump, and we both said we don't think that Australians would worship a politician ever. Like we just can't see that happening. Like
Yeah,
it's just politicians have a utilitarian sort of purpose, and if they're not doing their job, then we're pretty, even though we sort of get a bad rap as being a bit a bit cash, you'll definitely hear about it when we're not happy with our politicians. So I
I
think
think,
that's probably a positive.
yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. I think, yeah, you're right. But I would add that I think one of the problems for Labour and Albanese is that he does have a bit of a cult following around him. And those people in Labour, and like every day, every week, every year, he's losing that cult following because people are like, hang on, you're doing the complete opposite of what you said you would do and what you stood for your whole life and what we thought we were voting for you for.
Mhm.
Like, he bullied Fatima Payman out for supporting a Greens bill to recognize Palestine, which is the Labor policy to have a two-state solution. How can you have a two-state solution if you only recognize Israel, only recognize one state?
Yeah.
AUKUS as well. It was Albanese in the Labor Party who signed off on AUKUS. And those nuclear submarines, which maybe we'll never get, cost billions of dollars. And it's only if America has extra, which currently they won't have extra because they're not building enough to have enough in time for when they're supposed to give them to Australia. And it gets even worse. Australia can't even use the nuclear submarines unless America gives permission. So it's like, they're not even, oh, and if Australia uses them when America doesn't like, America is allowed to confiscate the submarines back. So, and this is what Albanese signed off on and what Albanese was boasting about. And he went over to America and was like, yeah, this is great. And then you also look at now what's happening with Trump. Like Trump, like they're saying Trump is a blip in the matrix, but he doesn't have to be because you can get other Trumpian people coming up in the future. Like for sure, he'll be setting his son up to be a future president one day. And you've got all these crackpots around Trump and MAGA, and they'll be looking for the next Messiah after Trump. And we'll see how the Americans go. That means that somebody like Trump could be controlling Australian nuclear submarines. It's like, that's insane. And this all goes back to Albanese. Albanese, when he became prime minister, he could have pulled the plug. He could have said, this is a stupid deal. This is insane. We're going to relook at this and renegotiate it and find something else. Or, if he was too worried about cancelling the whole thing. And then Albanese spent all his time with Penny Wong running around the Labor Party, making sure that that there was not going to be a members vote on whether they were going to support AUKUS or not. So, like, a lot of Labor members wanted to oppose the AUKUS deal, and they wanted a rank and file vote so that every member in Labor can vote, do we want this or not? And Albanese and Penny Wong stopped it. They blocked that from happening. So no members of the Labor Party were allowed to actually vote on whether they support that policy or not. Albanese just did it himself. Um, so there was the bullying of Fatima Payman on the Palestine issue. Literally, it was 1 month before him and Penny Wong started saying, "Hey, Israel should respect human rights," since October 7th. So from the October 7th attacks, him and Penny Wong were silent for an entire month. Like, Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to defend themselves. They killed tens of thousands of civilians. And then it was almost like a month to the day when Penny Wong and Albanese were coming out going, "Oh, Israel needs to respect human rights in Gaza." So like, that is a massive failing of any Australian leader. And so all the people who are around him, they're still clinging on for bare life because he was like this prophet, this messiah who was going to, make Australia left again. And he's just doing everything. He was also supposed to be a Republican. Where was the vote for the Republic? He promised us a vote for a Republic. We had the failed referendum, which Labor did absolutely nothing to set up correctly. Like, why? You've got 3 years in government. Why wouldn't you set up the Voice for 2 years, have it running so everybody can see what it is, and then propose that model to the Australian people in your third year and go, hey, can we make this structure that we've been running for 2 years, can we make it formal? Why didn't he do that? There's just so many, like, you can't blame Albanese for people being racist, but at the same time, he didn't put 100% effort into making that idea work. So it's like bullying Fatima Payman, not supporting Palestine, not defending human rights.
Selling out unions.
Yeah. Oh my God, the CFMEU. That was the straw that
Yeah.
broke my back.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if you've seen this information coming around now. The leaders of the CFMEU who have been appointed by the Labor government, as in their administrator who they've appointed, they're now being paid more than the union leaders were being paid before administration. So Labor appointed the administrator, and then that administrator, he controls the entire union, all their assets, all their money, all their bank accounts. There are even cases where they were organizing rank and file protests against the administrator, and the administrator took over control of their Facebook pages and wouldn't let them advertise their protests and
Wow.
their meetings. And yeah, and this is all like the Liberal Party tried for like 15 years to destroy the CFMEU, and Albanese, whose members of the party and leaders of the party and donators of the party are CFMEU, he just smashed it in a day. It's just
Mhm.
unbelievable.
Mm.
And I think that's the sad thing about Labor is that they just oppose everything the LNP does when LNP are in government. And then when Labor are in government, they just do everything that the LNP wanted to do anyway. They also tried to introduce, Albanese also tried to introduce the misinformation bill, which was first drafted by Scott Morrison.
God. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah. He's been a major disappointment, that's for sure.
He's a massive
Um,
disappointment. And like
mm,
coming from his electorate, Marrickville, Petersham, and that area, the inner west of Sydney. Every time I travel back to that area in Sydney, people are just like, "Oh man!" And like every time I go there, it's just worse and worse and
really?
worse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. People are so pissed off with him.
Ugh.
They're shocked. They're
And
disappointed because it's like you expect this type of shit from the LNP and the Liberals,
yeah.
and One Nation and all that. You expect it from them, and that's another major problem of the Labor Party is that you come out and you go, Albanese kicked out his renter to sell his house, which is negative gearing, and then
Mhm.
from the profits from that negatively geared house, he's now bought this millions of dollars mansion on the coast,
Mhm.
and then when you bring that up, all the Labor supporters go, "Oh yeah, but do you know how much money Dutton has?" And I'm like, I don't care about Dutton. I don't like him. Like that's 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 their job. The Liberals say we are for the rich. We are to make money. And that's why people join the Liberals and why people support the Liberals is because they all want to win the lottery and they all want to get rich and have those
Yeah.
connections. Like we know that they are the party for the rich and the elite. Labor is supposed to be different. It's supposed to be for the laborers. It's supposed to be for the
Mhm.
not rich and the not elite. And so
Yeah.
every time people call out Albanese, the the diehard cultists around Albanese, they just throw dirt at Dutton, and it's like, well, that doesn't stick because that's his policy. He says, I want to be rich. Vote for me, and I'll make. It's a lie. I vote for me, and I'll make you rich too. It's a lie because not everyone can be rich because then there's no such thing as
Yeah.
being rich. If everybody has $1 million is not $1 million.
Yeah.
But then like people around Albo don't get that. They don't get that we expect better from Labor. We expect different from Labor. They think, oh no, we can just compare our. Dutton has 600 million, for example, and Albo has only 10 million. Oh well, that changes everything. So yeah, I think there are like diehards around Albo, and I think Albo's a sinking ship, and they're riding him to the bottom.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Penny Wong, I thought if you had have asked me before October 7th, I would have said that Penny Wong will be our first elected female prime minister. Not anymore. Not anymore. She
Is that because
she
you
is
don't like her, or because you think she's stuffed up too
think
much that Australians won't vote for her?
because I think she's complicit in a genocide, so as a foreign minister, and she's she's been revolting to Marine Faruqi in the Senate, and yeah, I just think, and she is so tied to Albo as well, like I think that
Yeah,
his his downfall is going to be her downfall as well. But just for me, it was like, she may still do okay, but like, so my point of view from all everything that's happening with Trump and so on is that it's basically what happened in World War II. Like there was the beer hall putsch, and we've got the January 6th insurrection. But then he got elected again, and he's going to destroy everything, just like Hitler did. That's just my opinion, and I see that like the collaborators of like genocide and those sorts of things are not going to be thought of fondly after everything has gone down. And I think that she has been complicit and
Yeah.
collaborating from a
Oh,
distance. Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
The only thing I would like, absolutely, the only thing I would question is whether Australians care enough about those issues. The Zionist lobby is huge, very powerful, a lot of money.
It
Like,
is.
and I think Albo really screwed himself over. If he had taken a humanitarian approach to the whole thing, he would have been able to unify everybody who's opposed to genocide around him and around the Labor Party for the upcoming
Yep.
elections. Things are starting to change in the General Assembly, so maybe that's his plan in the elections. The Zionists will never ever support Labor. They will never support Albanese. This next election coming up next year, they're going to put as much money as possible and connections and pressure on the Australian democratic system to have Dutton elected in.
Yep.
Dutton is absolutely the best
Exactly.
for Netanyahu, and the Zionists in
Mhm.
Australia will absolutely put all of
Yep.
their pressure against Albanese, and Albanese will never be able to appease them ever because he won't openly come out and say Israel is allowed to murder and genocide anybody they want, which is essentially what the Liberal Party does. And so he'll never win them. And so, but then by playing, by
Like,
like pretending to play this middle ground, he's just losing the anti-genocide people, and he's
yep.
never going to get the Zionists. I mean, all we can hope for is that that means that translates into more votes for the Greens. I think
Yeah.
I was in New South Wales for their council elections. So what happened was
Ah,
the Liberals forgot to register most of their candidates. So there were no Liberal. There were very few Liberal candidates across the whole of New South Wales for their local elections.
wow.
The guy in charge of it got fired for it
I
in the
bet.
Liberal Party. Yeah, and yeah, and so I thought it was funny at the time when it happened, and now I regret that it happened because what happened was a lot of the Liberal voters voted for Labor, so Labor kind of kept their seats, like kept kind of like stable. At the same time, I think a lot of Labor voters, because of the Palestine issue, they voted for the Greens, and
Greens.
so all across New South Wales, the Greens had a massive boom in vote.
Local council.
And I believe that they were Labor voters. Yeah, local
Yeah.
council, which has nothing to do with obviously with the genocide in Palestine, but
But it's
people
a
wanted to
message.
punish Labor. Yeah,
It's a
but it's a
message. Yeah.
message that doesn't come through because Liberal voters voted for Labor, so they didn't. The Labor didn't lose. Labor didn't really lose seats.
Mm.
Like they didn't
Yep.
lose enough seats to be like, oh shit, people are pissed with us. And so, and I don't know if they're smart enough or if they care enough to look into deeper that the reason why the Greens got so many more votes is because Labor voters went to the Greens and then Liberal voters voted for you because they stuffed up their submissions. But that's not going to translate for the federal election because the Liberals are not going to forget to
No.
apply. It's not going to happen
Oh,
again. So I don't know. All we can hope is that people vote against genocide.
yeah. I think that's what got me with the American election, and I see it as like the canary in the coal mine. Look at what happened over there. He is a lifelong Zionist. He would not go against Netanyahu,
Yeah,
and and
I think so
but
too.
Netanyahu was never for him, and it's like, why are
No,
you so loyal
yeah,
to somebody
exactly.
who's not loyal to you? It didn't make any
Yeah,
sense, and it's like, why are you doing this? And so I hope
yeah.
Albanese learns that lesson. Like that is the obvious lesson.
I doubt it. I don't know. The problem with Labor is that you're right. Like they can. they could do that. They could learn from what me and you are saying, but then the other possibility is also right. They can say, oh well, if people are voting for right-wing parties, we need to be more right-wing, and that's usually what they do. They go, and that's the problem with the Democrats and Labor. They've both done the same thing, that they've both tried to appease the right wing so much that the left no longer can see them as being left.
No.
And then also people are like, well, there's no difference between you two. So and then the people who support the Republicans and the Liberals, they are diehard supporters. And I think they will always be voting for the Republicans and the Liberals.
Absolutely.
But the I think the swing voters are just like, well, you don't stand for anything different or new, so we'll just go with what we know, which is the Republicans and the Liberals. They like, I don't use the word often conservative, but for the sake of international communication, the conservatives essentially are saying we want things to stay the way they are. Basically, we want to conserve. We don't want things to change. So people know what that is because it is what it is. Whereas when you're not conservative, people are very afraid of change and progress. And then if you're not making that clear to people what you stand for and what it is and how you're different and what things are going to change, then people are like, well, we don't know who you are. We don't recognize you as a positive alternative. So I think it's just as likely I think it's more likely Labor to go more right wing than it is for them to realize that they're isolating moderates and left wing as they turn right.
Yeah, I just hope that they have some younger people on staff who are
Well, Fatima Payman.
Yeah, exactly.
Fatima Payman. Well, look what they did to her. And she's been a member of Labor since she was like 18 or 17.
Yeah.
She was in
organizing and it was
Labor
like
Youth.
Yeah.
And they smashed her.
Yeah, true. True. Like I am worried about like sort of the Gen Z vote, because I know that was big, like the male and female divide, especially with the right wing media that people consume. But then again, I think maybe I'm terminally online, and so maybe it's not as pervasive as I think. And then I have to like stop being such a doomer. Yeah, I think if they don't learn lessons, it's like you deserve to lose. If you are going to do shit like this and you don't want to listen to your constituents and you don't want to listen to the changes in what people are saying and doing, then you know, you don't deserve to lead the country. Like you said, like people know what they're getting.
I guess we can just hope that translates into people voting for the Greens, but that's also very
Yeah.
difficult.
Well, like when people were talking about the Greens in America, I'm like, no, Australian Greens, they are starting grassroots campaigns. They are in communities. They are in the local council, the state government. Like they are actually building a party, which is like they're not just turning up when there's a federal election and running someone. Like we know the members of the party, they've served, they've got a voice in parliament, and they are offering a legitimate alternative to both of the parties. Which
What, as opposed to America?
yeah, where like Jill Stein just turns up once every 4 years for I mean, she had no effect on the election at all. I think she got 1% of the vote, and then they exposed that she was getting Russian money and blah blah blah. And
I think that's why also preferential voting is so integral. And at the voting booth where I was, some people would comment, like I'd say, what are you interested in? What would you like to see change? And I actually had quite a few people say, oh, I want to stop preferential voting. I don't think it's a good idea. And I'll just explain to them why it's so integral, because where I lived in Bulgaria, they don't have preferential voting. And so the problem is every time a new progressive party, and when I mean progressive, I don't necessarily mean socially progressive, because they're generally not, but like anti-corruption, anti-mafia parties, which is kind of like the all you can hope for a good party in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
They people are afraid to vote for them because it's all or nothing. So if you vote for the party that you think is the best and they don't win, then those votes are just lost. And then it's possible that the party that you really hate gets in because it's like splitting the vote.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's that American thing about NADA splitting the vote in the USA.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people get stuck in this two-party spiral to the bottom. So if you really hate the Republicans, for example, if you vote for the Greens, then that's a vote away from the Democrats, which
Yeah.
means the Republicans get in.
Yeah.
So people are out of fear. They're not voting for who they want. They're voting for the least undesirable. So people begrudgingly will vote for the Democrats only to try to block the Republicans, not because they like the Democrats. They hate the Democrats,
Yeah.
but they're just so much more afraid of the Republicans. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why the Australian system is so much better than the American, or in a lot of other places like Bulgaria, because you can vote for the small guys who, like the community-led people, the people with the lower budget, and then your vote isn't lost because it will still have that
Yeah.
same result of blocking the party you don't like. You know, in Queensland, people got to pick their own preferences.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so for example, you can put the Greens
Oh.
one and
Oh,
Labor
yeah, yeah, yeah.
two. Like
Yep, yep, yep.
you number each
Yep.
yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One Nation voters, I was watching because I thought it was the only interesting part of the vote in where I was watching the votes being counted. From the people who voted for One Nation, it's like the biggest far right party in Australia, but they're pretty miserable now. They've lost a lot of support. But
They have.
they from the people who voted for One Nation at one as a primary vote, half of them put Labor and half of them put Liberals down as their number two. So it's like One Nation, and Pauline Hanson always talks with the Liberals, like the LNP and Liberals, that we are sending votes to you because we put you as number two. But the supporters of One Nation are like, nah, we're doing our own thing, and they put. So like half the One Nation vote went to. So it's like it's like they didn't exist because the votes cancelled each other out.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
a
yeah.
waste. Oh,
Yeah, but I just think it's funny. You can't rely on One Nation voters.
I wouldn't anyway,
No,
honestly.
I know.
Oh, she's in fine form, old Pauline. Uh yeah, I'm just so surprised she's still around, to be honest, because she was around when I was in university. Like my my university best friend was from Ipswich, so like he had been to her fish and chip shop, and we had called her the fish and chip bitch from Ipswich, because she's just awful.
I think she's turned it into a big business now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, One Nation gets a lot of money from big companies. Like
Yeah, yeah.
um, and I was when I was standing at the voting booths with One Nation people, we were just chatting, and it was all very civil because there's just like us and nobody else, and and we were just chatting, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you work for foreign companies, and you guys are this and that." And I'm like, the Greens in Queensland are the only party that doesn't take donations from companies. And then I said, "Does One Nation take donation from companies?" And then the One Nation guy turned to the other One Nation guy and said, I don't know, do we?" And then it was the candidate, it was the local candidate for the One Nation party. He asked, and he goes, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, I haven't gotten anything." And I just said, "Hang on," and I just googled it, and I go, "Oh yeah, you guys get heaps of donations. Like One of the first ones that came up was like Big Tobacco. Big Tobacco pay One Nation a shitload of money, and it's all public. It's all declared on their web pages, and it's not hidden.
It has to
Like
be.
and I turned to them and I said, so don't talk to me about being a bought party, your party. And it's also, do you know what? Actually, you should investigate One Nation as an MLM.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. So what happened was, the local candidate, he was telling me what happened. He wanted to run in his area, and he met with the people from One Nation, and they said, you can do what you want, say what you want. We won't interfere. And I said, yeah, but Pauline Hanson is it's Pauline Hanson who runs the party. It's a dictatorship. Like whatever she says at the end of the day goes. He was like, oh no, I've been promised that I can do whatever I want. So all the campaign material for the candidate has to be paid for by the candidate themselves. So posters, pamphlets, fuel, like he would have spent tens of thousands of dollars on driving around. He drove around the electorate because the electorates in Queensland are so big, of course.
Yeah.
Printing the signs, distributing them all. The only thing that he was allowed to use from One Nation was basically like their supporter network list. Because I told him, why didn't you just run as an independent? And so the only advantage he had was, and he would have gotten more votes if he'd ran it as an independent too, I reckon.
Absolutely.
The network of One Nation supporters was putting up signs and pamphleting for him. That's the only advantage. But then get this, if anybody wins from One Nation, or if they get enough votes, the money goes to the party. So I said to him, if you get over the threshold to get the government funding for elections, do you get the money? He's like, oh, I don't know. No, I don't think so. And I said, I said to him, well, that sounds like a bit of a scam. You pay all the investment for the election campaign, and then if the One Nation candidates get over the threshold for government funding, that funding goes to Pauline Hanson and her party, and the candidate doesn't get shit. And they're the ones who have put the money in, not the party. The party doesn't pay. Yeah. And so I started having the feeling like One Nation is a good money making scam, where they get vulnerable and naive and ignorant people who think they have a shot of winning, and they put their life, like essentially they put their life savings into it. Like they put all their extra money into it. Obviously, like in Australia, you can't touch your super if you have it. And people aren't selling their houses, but like any savings they have, they're spending on these elections. And then all the funding that the government gives goes to Pauline Hanson's party, not back to the candidate who spent the money on the election. So yeah, I reckon that's a massive scam. Plus, at the same time, Pauline Hanson's getting paid
as a senator.
She's getting paid as a senator, but also they're getting huge donations from corporations. And where does that money go? Because if they're not using it for elections, who gets that money? Like if they're not using it for flyers and placards and advertising for their candidates, then what's the money? Why is Big Tobacco paying Pauline Hanson's One Nation if it's not being used for elections? So it's a massive scam. That's why she's so outrageous, because she's found this little niche market of people who will be naive enough to vote for her and support her and send her money. And she just tries to be as outrageous as possible to get the media attention, so that all the racists and homophobes will vote for her.
Well, and that's interesting because when Fatima Payman was talking to her, Fatima Payman said that she was a racist, and Pauline stands up and says, "I want her to take that back."
I mean, the racism and comments and quotes that you've made in the past.
Senator Hanson.
I want to withdraw that racism. It's not racism. I want it withdrawn.
Senator Payman, I'll just rephrase that, please.
Senator Hanson's quote, "I challenge anyone to tell me one thing that I've said that is racist." And here I begin. There's a few. There's so many, we could be here all day. She has said, "I believe we're in danger of being swamped by Asians," in her first speech. In 1998 policy speech, She said Aboriginality would no longer exist under her party's policies. I kept on giving you the benefit of the doubt, Senator Hanson, despite your repetitive attempts to be racist to anyone who does not look like you.
You are a convicted
Senator Hanson, point of order.
Racist.
Yes, Senator Hanson.
Yes, I do, and I want these comments about calling me racist
You're a convicted
withdrawn.
racist.
And I'm like, you just lost a court case for being racist. Like, you just were found guilty of racial vilification. Like, how are you fucking kidding? Like, and I could hear in the background Lydia Thorpe yelling out, she's been found guilty of racism. And I'm like, yes, let's go, Lydia.
Yeah.
Although I think she got censured for that. So, you know.
Lydia for shouting it out again.
I think.
I like them. I like them both myself. I just think sometimes fighting with Pauline Hanson is like a distraction from the cause.
That's what Fatima that was her point. She said, we are here to look at this list of what we're doing today in Parliament, and Pauline Hanson is obsessed with me. She wants to talk about my birthright, and we've got like a list of
we've
things
got work
to do. This is ridiculous.
It reminds me of the trans woman in the American Congress. I've forgotten the names of everybody involved.
Nancy Mace is the name of and Sarah McBride, I think, is the name of the Sarah is the name of the trans woman, and then Nancy Mace is the name of the awful lady.
And then Sarah, as you say, Sarah just came out and goes, "I've got shit to do. I've got work to do here." Like, and those people, they want to turn that into a cause themselves to get that street cred. And so, I think just ignoring Pauline Hanson is probably that's death to Pauline Hanson if you don't interact with her. That's her death. Like, she's finished.
Absolutely.
If you just ignore her and don't talk to her, that's the end of her and her party. And I think that's a major reason why they've basically disappeared over the years.
Yeah. It's like, stop giving it air. And that's probably what is another lesson from Trump. Like, he made the news every day, and it just, even if it's bad news, he stays in the consciousness. And I just feel really sorry for those like first time voters in America, and all they've ever known in their life is a political landscape with Trump. Like, that's depressing. Like, oh God. And I have to admit, since the election, not hearing his voice has just been heaven. Like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to listen to him. It's just,
I have a concept of a plan.
Oh, you know, like,
he was threatening journalists the other day.
Yeah, well, and some journalists are like, "We love you now. Hi, we love you. We'll go down to Mar-a-Lago and kiss the ring."
I think it was Meet the Press, and she was asking him, "Do you have a plan? You said before you had a concept of a plan. Do you have a plan?" And he goes, "Yes, I've got a concept of a plan." And then she kept asking him, "Well, what's the plan?" And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said something like, "You could have such a fantastic career in front of you. Why are you asking me these questions?" And that was just like, oh, that's exactly the type of crap that they talk. That's how they talk in Bulgaria when journalists piss off politicians and mafia. It's like, hey, do you want to still be working in this job? Why are you asking me this question? It was 110%. Trump was threatening the journalists. Like, stop pushing these questions to issues I don't have answers for because I'm an idiot. I'm threatening your career. He's not even president yet.
I know, that's it. Like, I would be that's where the Democrats could, like, they could be doing stuff. I hope they're doing stuff to protect people, although they were just about to elect somebody for the NLRB, which is to do with their unions. They were just about to elect a leader, and they needed the Democrats, like, to vote on it. And have you heard of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema?
No.
They basically have killed every single thing that the Democrats have tried to do. They're Democrats, and they vote against the Democrats, and they rushed across town to vote against this NLRB leader who was going to help keep union stuff like okay under Trump. But I just think if Trump doesn't like stuff, he's going to do what he likes. He's going to do what he likes. If he doesn't get to do something through Congress, he's just going to fuck it up. He's just going to say, "Well, you're
He's
fired. You get
already
out. You're going to go
he
there."
can't. He can't. He's already his guy for Attorney General has already failed before it even started. They didn't even get through the first process. They didn't even get to
True.
propose him for a vote. Like
True.
nothing. And even before that, Trump wants the Congress to go on vacation so that he can appoint people without having a congressional scrutiny
Recess.
over the candidates. Yeah. And Congress have said no, we won't do that. So it's like he's already lost two. He's had two battles after being elected, after winning the elections, where they call it president elect. After winning elections, he's had two battles and he's 2 for 2 lost them. It's not it
I think
like
it'll be different once he's in. I think it'll be different, but yeah,
well
that's
the thing is with arrogant people like Trump is that they think that government is a dictatorship. They think they think that governments are like companies which are
yes.
dictatorships. Like if you're the CEO, the president, or if you're the owner of a company, what you say goes. And then they think that politics and governments and states are the same like companies. And then you've got people's feelings, then you've got history, you've got language, you've got culture, you've got these two groups have been fighting each other for 1,000 years, and it's not as easy as just saying, "Hey, stop," and they do. And then you've got all these conflicts of interest that are so difficult to organize within your own government, within your own system. And so that's why Trump, he could do very little when he was when he
Yeah.
was president
The
last
first
time,
time.
because
Yeah.
the first time when he was president, he could do very little because every idea he had was completely impossible to pull off. He didn't build the wall with Mexico. He's a joke, and so I think people are like, it's not good, like for a lot of reasons, but I don't think it's as bad as people as people think it is now, because he's an idiot. He's not smart enough to navigate that very complex system.
I think eventually he'll have a falling out with Elon, but
Musk,
do you
yeah,
think
everybody's
do you
waiting for
do
it.
you think do you think Musk will sort of take control? Because I mean, I don't want to say Doge, but he, like
Say doggy, doggy,
doggy, yeah.
doggy.
So do you think that's going to be effective? Because he's not the
No.
genius everybody says he is, but he's got business smarts, like he knows what to do with business.
Well, I don't want to say too much about I don't want to say too much about Elon Musk because I'm using his Starlink satellites right now, and I don't want him to cut me off.
Do you think they're monitoring? Wow. Ooh.
Uh, hey, Elon, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Would you mind turning the internet back on, please?
Oh wow.
Okay,
Are you
thank
fucking
you.
kidding me? Are you joking with me?
So,
It's like,
um,
what the fuck?
so, so Musk's doggy is completely fake. It's a company. It's a corporation. It's not a government department. It's a corporation called Department of Government Efficiency.
I thought it was also a crypto coin to sell his crypto.
It is. It's not. So it's a. I believe it's a non-centralized crypto meme coin. So I don't believe it's Elon's personal coin, but he
Right.
he backs it as it was kind of like a joke many years ago. He said that Dogecoin will be bigger than
That's right.
maybe not Bitcoin, but ETH. I can't remember, but he was just like saying this will like it, as a joke, we'll make this coin really big, and but he named this company DOGE, which stands for Department of Government Efficiency, but it's not a department of the government. It's a corporation. It's a company, and the reason why they did that was because if Elon Musk was appointed to a government position, he would have to go through vetting process through the Congress, and he'd have to reveal all his conflicts of interest, all his investments, and everything he owned would all have to be out on the table in front of everyone. So what they did was they made a company, and this company will be contracted by America to give advice to Trump, I guess. I don't even know who the company reports to.
Yeah.
Like the company DOGE, does it report to Trump? Does it report to who is it contracted by? Who is it contracted to? Who is it responsible to? No idea. I don't think anyone at this stage, I don't think that stuff is public yet. But Elon Musk is not in the American government. They've made another company, and the company is somehow going to be advising Trump.
Yeah.
You know, like consultancy fees. Somebody pointed out that how ironic it was to make more fees for a company that's supposed to be reducing government spending, and now you're paying. Essentially, you will be paying Musk. If I presume there'll be a payment for the consultancy. And basically, what it means is
having two heads of the government efficiencies. Like, is it really efficient to have two people in charge?
yeah.
Like,
Well,
come
it's
on.
not government either. It's private.
Yeah.
It's not a department, and it's not government. It's a private company for advising Trump. That's what it should be called.
All of the people so far that he's announced in his like cabinet are just like they're not very good. Like, that's
Oh
putting it
no.
mildly.
It's exactly like one of the worst fascist parties in Bulgaria when they were picking their ministers, and it was like pop star, some crazy person, this. Like Trump has an alleged accused sex trafficker for the attorney general.
Oh yeah.
Alleged alcoholic for Minister of Defense.
And
Head
accuse
of
us.
sexual abuser, yeah.
Yeah.
The former head of World Wrestling for Department of Education, and then you've got Kennedy for like food,
Oh
health, and
my.
safety or whatever.
Oh
Like
God.
it's like the Penguin from Batman took over, and he's just appointing all his weird sidekicks. It's like you've got Mr. Frost, you've got Poison Ivy, you've got the Riddler.
And like Tulsi as the she's like Homeland. No, she's not Homeland Security. She's National Security, and she is like she's anti-Muslim, but she's also born in a cult. She loves Putin. She loves Assad. She loves Modi and India. She's like she loves some dictators.
Well, now that you mention Assad,
Yes.
I think Syria is going to be the new Afghanistan, if you ask me,
Yeah, I think.
because all these groups that were fighting Assad, most of them were in our Islamic State groups.
I thought it was ISIS and Taliban, like the new Taliban, and it's like fuck. And I listened to this really good podcast out of Lebanon, and like they do it in English, so it's really so they sort of cover world news, but they were talking about the Syrian
Yeah.
escape, and like under Assad, seeing people freed from prison, some people who'd been there for 30 and 40 years, that was amazing. That's so great. And it was like really heartening to see people,
Yeah.
finally free. And it just
And they're
sucks
still
because
looking. They're still looking for them.
yeah, because apparently there's
Secret rooms.
tighter security and that sort of stuff. But then that Israel's sneaking in and
Yeah.
getting some land, and then all these
But
other parties coming in, and it's like, fuck, give them a break. Can you just give them
the
a
thing
break?
is, the thing is with Israel though, is that Israel absolutely has to do that. Like I'm talking realpolitik, because Israel knows that the guys who are taking over are extremist right-wing Islamic jihadists, and so like America trained Osama, America, Saudi Arabia, Qatar supported Islamic State and a lot of those other terrorist groups. Israel knows that it's only a question of time before this group turns against Israel. And although it's going to be interesting because they have so much support from Turkey, and Turkey's in good relations with Israel. So we'll see. Like Turkey,
Mm.
but the thing is that like Osama, they lose control of their proxies. So everything will be okay in Syria for as long as Erdogan and Turkey control them. But one day they'll be like, well, we don't need Turkey anymore. We run the country, and then that's when they could turn against Israel. So I don't think Israel had much choice in doing that.
Oh, they like the Golan Heights was Syrian. They were illegally occupying anyway, so
Yeah, but the
it's
idea is you want to have as much buffer zone between you and an enemy as possible. So if you're predicting, like Netanyahu came out on the same day and said, this is a great day for Syria, blah, blah, blah. And the same day they're moving their army in because they know that this regime in Syria now could turn into like the new Islamic State. And so they're like, oh, we need even more buffer zone now, which is like, I would be making the same call if it was my call. I'd be like, oh, this group that's taken over Syria, they're dodgy as hell. I want to be as far away from them as possible. But that's the irony and the hypocrisy of them. They're all supporting these groups. So, for example, I was reading that Israel acted to block air defense, helped to block the air so that Iran couldn't help Assad.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but it's like the point of that story was that Israel was helping this group that took over that took over Syria.
Yeah, and I've heard that there were some Turkish forces fighting with American forces, and so there's been a bit of confusion as well because they're allies. So
That would
I've
be
heard,
in Kurdistan.
yeah.
In Kurdistan, they were this Turkish proxy group that's now taken over Syria. They were expanding into Kurdish Syria, which is American supported.
Right. Yeah.
And America was bombing Syria as well. I don't know if it didn't make the news, but it's true.
No, I think I knew that. I think I had heard that. I've been trying to have a look. There's a service called Ground News, and it tells you who's reporting the news, and like who, left wing, right wing, or center, and it'll tell you if there's a blind spot, if one left wing is all reporting this and it's not on the right wing channels and stuff like that. It's really good. It's called Ground News, and so I always check that to see like what's happening. And I think I've seen a couple of stories I wouldn't have heard about, but yeah, I had heard that America was bombing Syria as well.
Al Jazeera English is really good.
Yeah, I like Al Jazeera as well. That's probably one of the more reliable ones because good old ABC, not so reliable anymore. Like
No, what a
what the
joke!
fuck?
So sad.
I know it was such a good network, and they just fucked it up. Thanks for listening to Left Down Under. We'll catch you next week when we talk more Australian politics and the world beyond. If you can like and subscribe on YouTube, and if you're listening to the podcast, if you can give us a rating and a review, that'd be fantastic. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.